Hello, everyone. This is Robin, and today in our segment, we are going to talk about all things goals. Now, I appreciate in our last segment, we talked about daily routines and we talked a little bit about goals, but not as directly and explicitly as we are going to talk about today. So, when we think about resiliency and wellness, it's going to take some discipline. It's going to take some goals to get us on the right track. Now, what's important to think about with this idea of discipline, we don't have to be disciplined in absolutely every life area. Okay. There's a lot of life areas, and we're not trying to get like everything dialed in all at once. I want us to think about like slow, steady progressions towards how we want to feel. So, first of all, I think it's important to kind of acknowledge that goals and goal setting in our culture, it's not necessarily the most successful way of changing behavior. And what I mean by that is research suggests that 93% of goals that are set, for example, on January 1st or in the tradition of New Year's resolutions, 93% of those goals are abandoned by March 31st. We don't even follow it for 90 days. And it's interesting that we still continue these practices, although we don't really have success with them. So we're going to explore today in our segment, what does that look like and why is it that we don't have success? And maybe, just maybe for once and for all, we can address some of these barriers to change. So to get us started, I think what's really important to think about is this idea, like we did talk about last day with our daily schedules. Why is it that some things don't take traction? We explored some of those boundaries as to why we don't change, which is really important. And you might recall it has to do with mindset, this idea about short-term wins versus long-term, this idea about distractions or not having a fail forward plan. So yes, there is all those things, but the solution to real and optimal behavioral change or goals is using a formula that we call SMART goals. Now, SMART goals is a theory or an approach to goal setting that has a lot of research that backs this up. So the traditional view of SMART goals means that the SMART is actually an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So if you really want to set some positive work towards actual goal setting and goal change, we want to follow what we call that SMART formula. So for the spirit of what we're chatting about today, what I thought I would do is walk you through a pretty specific example when I'm working with people where they always want a little bit of extra support. So we're going to be thinking about this idea about how do we incorporate some more movement. All right. So something that we know is even though you might be on your feet all day or running around, the quality of the movement that we get as a form of self-care actually is a little bit different than the quality of movement we do for part of our day or part of our job. It's with intention. So I want to walk us through how we use SMART goals as a way to think about this. So first, we have to be specific. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? In this particular example, we're trying to get a new movement practice into our day. Now, this isn't high intensity workouts where we're punishing ourselves or trying in vain to hate ourselves healthy. What I'm talking about is a gentle joy movement practice because it feels good. So the specific goal we're going to talk about is getting in some daily walks. All right. I want you to think about our walks, and they can be like meditative walks. They could be active recovery walks. They could be nature walks. I just want to get you walking if that's available to you. So specifically, we're going to try to get some walks into your day. And I know at the end of your workday, the last thing you want to do is be on your feet. But trust me, this joy practice is really going to help navigate stress and set us up for optimal health. Now, number two, we have to make it measurable. Okay. So that's the M in the SMART. We got to make it measurable. So I'm going to be thinking about it that I want to get out 5 walks per week. Okay. Not 7, because I know life is going to get in the way and there's going to be interruptions. So 5 out of 7 days, I want to get a walk in. And each of those walks, I want them to be at least 30 minutes long. So 5 walks a week at 30 minutes per walk, right? So already that's sounding, I hope, pretty manageable. Now, this idea about the attainable, I want you to ask yourself, do you have the tools that you can make this happen? So for example, if you're in the darker days of winter, like I am right now where I live, for me to be able to make that happen, I have to have warm clothes. I have to have like be willing to bundle up. I need to have proper boots and heck, even snow pants at this point. So is that it's something that's attainable to me? Like, do I have the right tools? So yes, I can make sure I have the right tools. And I'm also right now free from injury, which means I'm able to get out. Now, this other idea that we think about that sometimes get overlooked in terms of is that idea about like that it's achievable, right? So yes, I have the tools, I can do it, but is it relevant? Because if you try to set a goal in your life where it's not relevant to your current landscape, my friends, it's not going to happen. It just will become so not value added, it seems irrelevant. So we want to make sure this is relevant. And I think a solid walking practice is really relevant for our capacity for resiliency and wellness. So to me, this is relevant. This is something that's going to make a difference. And then the last idea is this idea about being time bound. One of the reasons why so many goals don't work is people kind of sign up blindly that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm going to walk 30 minutes 5 times a week. Well, the reality is your seasons are going to change emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually. Your goals are going to shift and adapt. So we don't want to sign up limitlessly that we're always going to do this behavior. We want to do it for short sequences. So my challenge for you is to say, can you time bound this for 4 weeks? So in the grand scheme of things, we're talking 20 walks, 30 minutes over a course of 4 weeks. And what I want you to do is track your progress. I want you to put a big check mark in your calendar when you have it done. I want you to see you getting closer to achieving that goal of your 20 walks. And what's so amazing about the human condition is, wow, we like to succeed. Despite challenges and setbacks, we really like challenges. So when you get that first X there, it's going to feel pretty good. When you get that 11th X and you cross that halfway point, home stretch, you're going to find a way to dig deep and keep going. So following this formula of a SMART goal is a way to bring upon behavioral change. Now, I'd let you know the reason why this strategy is so effective compared to a lot of the other approaches we take is because it's one behavior at a time. We're not trying to change everything. We're trying just to change this one. So thinking about, okay, once you get your walking routine established, ideally it's going to reinforce itself enough that you're going to choose to keep going forward with it. You're going to keep practicing it. So I want you to think about a series of every 4 weeks, adding a new behavior that you want to acquire. So this is something that, so what we know is that this is readily available to us. Now, the other invitation I want to offer you here is there's like an additive piece that we can put onto the SMART goal theory, and that's an O. So I want you to think about it as SMART, O, and the O stands for the obstacle. Now, often when I'm working with persons and they're working towards goals, as long as it's smooth sailing, as long as everyone's healthy, as long as, we're not homeschooling, like as long as everything's kind of copacetic, people can achieve their goals using this formula. However, if you don't plan for the inevitable, if you don't plan for that obstacle, it's going to be harder for you to be able to push through it because all of a sudden we get tied up with this idea of perfection. It's supposed to look a particular way. I can assure you, perfection is actually the enemy. All right. Progress counts. Progress matters. And as Alistair McCaw, the famous sports writer, puts it, small things done consistently will yield big results. So if maybe on a day you don't have 30 minutes that you can get outside, or maybe, just maybe like here right now, it happens to be minus 24 in Ontario, maybe your walk is 10 minutes. Maybe it's 2 15-minute walks, or there's some type of variance that you give yourself some wiggle room for. Now, this isn't making excuses. This is understanding that there are going to be obstacles. But again, the obstacles are part of the process. We don't want to be surprised when we see an obstacle. We want to acknowledge, like, yeah, we knew that there was a good chance in February the temperatures are going to drop and it's going to get colder. And that's not going to preclude us from meeting our goals. So being mindful of the obstacles. There's going to be obstacles, but we are going to have a plan. Now, one of my other strategies, so that's SMARTO goals, great strategy. It's going to get you started. Now, the second little behavioral strategy I want to offer you, and this feels like a gem. This literally feels like I can unpack the research and offer you this amazing approach to behavioral change and goal achievement. It is called habit stacking. So, habit stacking is a time tested approach to how we can get some good behavior into your repertoire that doesn't necessarily follow the SMART formula. Okay, because there's going to be some behaviors that don't necessarily match with SMART. So we're going to do it a different way. And then the gem is habit stacking. So what the principle of habit stacking is that you take a habit that you already have in your arsenal. So it's a behavior you already do anyway, and you pair it with a new behavior, the new desired behavior that you want to achieve. So let's say you want to practice gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote to worrying. You can't have a worried heart and a grateful heart at the same time. So I want you to take this idea about gratitude. Okay, well, how do we get you to practice gratefulness? Now, we know gratitude is something that we aspire for, but people find that it ebbs and flows in terms of motivation. So we want to find a way to really drive this home. So let's use habit stacking. Now, if I'm going to use habit stacking in my life, I have some pretty entrenched habits that I do, and I don't need to be reminded to do them. So I know their habits. Number one habit for me is I enjoy a hot cup of coffee in the morning. My cup of coffee is like this like sacred moment in the morning. I really enjoy a cup of coffee. It doesn't even have to be good coffee. I'll literally drink any hot coffee in the morning, but it's how I like to start my day. Now, I don't have to be reminded to drink coffee in the morning. It's a habit I have taken with me, and I've taken it over different continents and will still find a way to get a cup of coffee in the morning, even if I don't speak the language. Now, what I do if I want to do a cognitive behavior like gratitude, it's something that we do in our heads. If I want to do that, I use coffee as a habit stacking tool. What I do is I will put a post-it note on the coffee pot that says, Robyne, stop and reflect on three things that you're grateful for. Just reflect on three things that you want to give thanks for. Now, what is so fascinating and one of the human mysteries about behaviorism is every morning when I go to my coffee pot, I'm somewhat surprised to see the post-it note there that I left myself. It's like, oh yeah, right, that's something I wanted to do. So as I'm waiting for that coffee to percolate and that magic sound is filling up my kitchen, I pause and say, these are three things that I am grateful for. And I grabbed that cup of coffee and I got in my gratitude. It's just brief, but again, habit stacking works. Another example about habit stacking, and another one that I thought this really is quite significant, and somebody shared this with me years ago who is part of the work and health safety group. They talked about every time you get into a motor vehicle, and you click on your seatbelt. Okay, so you put on your seatbelt, you click it on. When you click on your seatbelt, I want you to take a deep inhalation and a slow exhalation and just arrive behind the vehicle. Like arrive behind the steering wheel. Like be aware of what you're about to do. I can let you know there's been times when I've been so caught up in my head and so much multitasking at work. I kind of jump in the car and scoot my way home. And all of a sudden I get home and I just think like, whoa, like I didn't even really remember the commute because I was just so on autopilot. But putting on that seatbelt, taking that deep inhalation, landing and accepting the responsibility for what you're about to do by operating a motor vehicle is an amazing grounding practice that can also save lives. So again, I want you to think about your goals as things that are going to add value to your life, being more mindful, being more grateful, getting some good rest, or having a nice walking program. We are so bombarded with all this messaging that things have to be bigger and louder and brighter, and there's so much social comparison. When we do the little things well and we hold ourselves to excellence for us, we will start to live rightly. We'll live in a balanced way where this makes sense. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You do what makes sense for you and for your family system. So then that way you have these good habits in your toolkit that you can lean into. So again, simple, follow the SMART protocol, practice habit stacking. There's so many ways that you can practice habit stacking as a way of building in some positive behavior to help carry the load. And again, as C.S. Lewis wrote in his quote about stress, it's not the way that you experience it, it's the way that you carry it in essence. It's not the load of it's not going to bring you down. It's the way you carry it. So create some habits that help carry it. And my last suggestion for you here as service persons, again, is to revisit that principle about care, but don't carry. I want you to care deeply about the people you work with. And then when the day is done, I want you to let it go. I want you to trust that you did the best you could, that you were of service, and that service was enough. And then make sure you look after you so that way you can show up for the people that matter most. So thank you. Merci. Miigwech. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.